a super special episode exclusively for you here today.
Here we go.
Let's go.
Whoa! Yes! That's the stuff.
One more acceleration for Leah. Let's go.
And there goes the phone.
From the heartland of Lotus, 2.5 hours northeast of London in Hethel, this is where the Lotus company was born, where they still build their small sports cars. They're still building them here today, and also where their newer electric cars and plug-in hybrid cars are also co-developed right now. We're going to find out how much British engineering is still in Lotus, also with their new electric cars and the first ever plug-in hybrid, so to speak, the Eletre, which is the all-electric SUV, but now also as the plug-in hybrid with almost 1000 horsepower and the battery size that is almost as big as a full electric vehicle. How can that make sense? We'll tell you all about it with this exclusive, including a racetrack episode. And also Brian will join us with his British view of the things and my German view of the things with Thomas on Audio Fuel in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go. You can see, wait a minute, is this a Lotus Eletre, the all-electric SUV? Yes and no, because on the outside and on the inside they are pretty similar. However, they use a different platform to make this one now also a plug-in hybrid. And this is really hard to understand on the one hand, but then let's dig into the details. So as I said, you see the almost same vehicle here, by the way, in Galloway green, very strong green color. Green has always been a color of Lotus. And you see it also with their heritage race cars. The race cars back then, a lot of them were green. Then they at some point introduced like a yellow stripe in the middle. Then they went with the colors of the sponsors. So you can also see these shots here from the museum, from the heritage section on this compound here. They, for example, also have a first series Lotus Esprit there in the museum, which I personally love. Beautiful design for sure. And then let's take a look here at the most current vehicle. So we have 21-inch wheels here, pretty large, cool look. And then the shape of the Lotus Eletre definitely. But again, different platform. So we have one electric motor in the front, one in the rear, like the all-electric one, and 952 horsepower. The difference here is that we'll soon take a look at another engine under the hood, a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, which is supporting this vehicle as a generator, but can also directly power the wheels. The length here is 5 meters and 10, 201 inches. And you can see they play a lot with aerodynamics. You know, they have a lot of openings and gaps here in the vehicle, also in the rear, both in the front. Aerodynamic is also a thing they have used a lot in their actual heritage. And the current lineup looks as this. You have the Eletre SUV, now the Eletre plug-in hybrid. In China, they sell it as Lotus 4Me. It will not get the same name in Europe. So they will probably change it to another name, maybe call it Eletre plug-in hybrid. Let's see about that. That's not finalized yet. This is also here a Chinese version of the vehicle, but it will more or less be the same, so to speak. Then they have the small sports car, the Emira, which they are actually building just, you know, right behind me in these halls then here. And this is still a combustion engine small race car. And they also have the all-electric large sedan, the Emea, and then they also have their all-electric supercar, the Evija, which is limited to 130 pieces. So the interesting thing is, of course, and the main question, how much Britishness, how much British heritage is still in the brand of Lotus. And I talked to the engineers, and what they actually do is they have the test track here in Hethel, where they test a lot, different kinds of vehicles, and they have their specific Lotus profile. They co-develop then with the Chinese plant in Wuhan, and then they say, this is what we want to have as Lotus, you know, and then they start developing the next car for that. And they're still building the more like hand-built small sports cars here, whereas the factory in China is like fully robotized and state-of-the-art high-tech. And then both worlds kind of merge, you know, in what they want to do with that car. And of course, I want to see both here on the test track and also on the open road if that works with the latest Lotus. So with the all-electric Eletre, you would find small frunk here. But here you have then the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, supports a generator for more range. They promise overall range of 1,400 kilometers. So usually this will still drive electric, and it accelerates in 3.3 seconds, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, which is a little bit slower than the top Eletre full electric and a little bit faster than the entry-level version of the all-electric one. Overall, as I said, 952 horsepower, and it will predominantly still drive all-electric with a 70 kilowatt-hour net battery. And this is as large as a full electric car battery. The other one from the Eletre SUV would be 112 kilowatt hours, so even larger. But here then they say it's for those who maybe go on even longer trips, and then you can drive it all electric maybe during the week in most cases. But if you're planning on a very, very long trip and don't want to bother about charging, maybe crossing borders or something like that, then you would still have the petrol engine as a generator. When it's below a certain threshold, the battery, then it can also directly power the wheels and have a combined drivetrain if needed. So there are different situations how the combustion engine will work, but in most cases it will be rather a range extender generator. Let's also take a quick rear perspective where you can again see this aerodynamic work here exiting at the back. CD value of 0.26, by the way, which is comparable to a Mercedes GLC EQ. So for this size of the vehicle, that's actually not too bad at all. And you will drive this vehicle, also with aerodynamic efficiency as a pure electric one. Should you want to charge it, by the way, 20 to 80% in under 9 minutes. So they profit from extremely quick charging. These are not the European ports here, by the way, just for info. Electric charging flap here. So that is where they all profit from the Geely Corporation. They all have super quick charging capabilities. By the way, here the flap is on this side and the fuel cap on the other side. I mean, Lotus is in a similar situation like Volvo. The main difference is that Volvo also builds the current new cars also in Sweden. So Volvo has like a larger headquarter in Sweden still, but both Volvo and Lotus, they belong to the Geely Corporation, and also Lynk & Co, for example. They have so many brands. Meanwhile, you can imagine it like the Volkswagen Corporation, who also has like Seat, Cupra, Skoda, Audi, and so on. And the same thing basically Geely has been doing, also then acquiring the European brands. They all profit that they can share then technology and wisdom as well, and engineering experience. And also, for example, they have large testing centers then they can also share. You can see in the rear the light strip goes through, but it also has a cool animated signature when you put in the turning indicators. And here it says actually Lotus for me. This is then the naming in China. You can also see the Chinese signs in here. As I said, they will not use this name on the European market. Maybe you can come up with a better name, then tell me in the comments. I think visually it works very well, definitely. We soon take a look, a detailed one at the interior. And of course, I'm so much looking forward to the driving party today. I will test this 3.3 seconds in the acceleration figure for you for sure. One more thing important to know for driving, this features standard 2-chamber air suspension, can go up and down as well depending on the situation, and it has an electronic anti-roll system, both front and on the rear axle, so the car always stays upright. But it can also be not active depending also on the situation, what is better for each driving situation, if you have potholes or if you're like faster on the track and so on. Heading towards the interior, you have a key card you can use, but they're also supplying a key fob. Here they have this case, and also in the form of the Lotus logo. This is then the key fob. That's quite cool, right? Isn't it? And then you have one key to open and close it at the same time. You here see the flush door handles. As you might have heard, they will be forbidden on the Chinese market soon. Let's see if other regulators will follow. So manufacturers will have to change that again at some point, at the point where these were decided. The car was already like in the line through the production. So yeah, these will go away again. And then here they are manual when you open like this, and door closing sound. Wow, I mean, 4 frameless doors. You have a great door closing sound. That's very seldom. And you also have the lamination here, both front and the rear. Here, like this additional layer. Then inside of doors, you see we have here a very unique black and green scheme, and everything is covered. You do have the electronic door releases here, also with this metal knurling here. It's beautifully done here, also for the window levers. I'm more a friend of manual door openings from the inside. These will also make their comeback, trust me on this. Here they have the separate manual release in the lower part right there. Everything covered also at the inside of the doors. And here we have the digital mirrors. There we go. This is an optional equipment. I hope so, at least. It's the same for the all-electric version, so I guess it will also be optional for the electric one. Then we have, in this case, the For Me entry badge. Will be different naming than I said in Europe. Also the color scheme here for the steering wheel, that looks really dramatic and sporty. But you still have manual dials here with clicking sounds for the cruise control, right side then for something in the instruments and so on. You do have small digital instruments though, so they rather set all the sails on the head-up display. Here, by the way, the logo here, these are the initials of the Lotus founder. That's why these letters. And then seats here, very sporty, bucket seats alike. This is a mix of leatherette and animal skin, I heard. There are also fabric seats in the fully electric Eletre available, for example. So I would probably then go for these. They have a special, it's called Lotus wear. So where they use recycled fabrics, then it's even a little bit softer and more comfortable from the seating surface. And these fabric seats will also be a little bit more breathable in the passive way. And yeah, they're available for the all-electric Eletre, and I hope they will also be then available here for the plug-in hybrid version. And then you can also get a microfiber steering wheel, for example, and that moves down and up and in and out, electric, and yeah, really spectacular design. Here, these pedals on the left side, you can set the regeneration. It also has a clicking sound. Then you could change the mode of regeneration, either heavier or softer. We also tested on the right side. I have the same pedal up and down, and then I can change the driving mode. We can also talk about that very soon. So the air suspension also then goes higher and lower according to that. And now to the cockpit. First of all, here once again to these seats. They're actually pretty comfortable. So although they look sporty, they have good ergonomics. And I would then, pick the fabric seats, of course, to make it all animal free, including a microfiber steering wheel, at least available for the Eletre or electric SUV. Headroom here with 189, 602, no problem. Even more to the glass roof. It's fixed. The only thing you can do is, and there we go, we have to go into the menu here because, where is it? There. Ta-da! This is like with this electric dimming, and then you can also set it to automatic transparency. That would also work. Yeah, but you cannot open it or something like that. What I find really beautiful is that they have the full microfiber headliner, and it goes all the way across the vehicle. So they really want to be in this top segment. Also here, when you put down the visors, so these are all covered in microfiber, both front and rear. Of course, also with an integrated light. So this is really cool. Actually, I love the attention to detail. Also 4 handles here. So no cost saving as for that. And also here in the front, everything is properly covered. Like top here, middle part. There's a small passenger display. I think that's fine. We do also have a glove box, which is actually opened here in this small middle console control unit. There we go. It does have a clicking feedback. There we go. And then you open or close here. You have an inductive charging pad, which is also covered with microfiber. Yeah, let's see about racing the vehicle if the phone stays in place there. see about that very soon. This is here the manual climate unit. Very happy to see that, and you can also see this animation here, warmer or colder, and it's a 2-zone AC, and also has clicking sound, as you might pick up from a microphone. That's actually pretty cool. So yes, they have a lot of digital stuff here, but still some manual interface, like also with the shifting pedals, which are not the shifting pedals, but you know what I mean. Also then here for the drive select, reverse, they're very high resolution rear view camera, and also a 360-degree view and so on. P then to go back again. The cup holders, you might know this from Bentley or Porsche. You can push them in like this, and then they also come out again. I think, yeah, it's most common like in Porsche Panamera and yeah, Bentley Continental, and they share the platform door as well, other Bentley vehicles as well. And then another metal knurling here, opening a lot of space underneath, 2 USB-C chargers. They are also quite powerful. Indeed, it reminds me a little bit of like Bentley interior details, doesn't it? You know, and that's no wonder, you know, because, you know, like British manufacturer, you know, more high pricing region, but you know that Lotus used to be all the way about the small lightweight sports cars. They still do them here, right? But this is then the future of Lotus, and make no mistake, I can understand when you say like, I would wish that Lotus is a pure 100% British manufacturers. I can understand that, you know, but the thing is, if GD wouldn't have bought Lotus, probably Lotus would be gone at all today. We also have to, you know, be aware of that for sure. Infotainment system is a large one. We can take a look at that one as well. It does have the, you know, like the first software version on it, so it's not like finalized yet. Yeah, digital instruments, there's not much to see, but there's actually a large head-up display. And the driver POV, once again here, also with nice clicking sounds at the steering wheel buttons here. This is again for the cruise control. Here on the right side you can also change the volume, and then the main infotainment unit. So I would always use, of course, the manual climate things, but you can also do it in the screen. It's also possible. There will also be a car internal GPS available at some point, of course, but it's cool visualization here as well, right? And you see also the processing power behind it, you know, that is like really, let's say, gaming ready, so to speak. You also have a normal main menu. Apple CarPlay is also available for connecting your phone. That looks like this then, the integration. So, but it's interesting, right? That the Apple CarPlay is always a little bit more laggy, less responsive than the car system itself. And that's always the case, actually, somehow. But so far, it's not too complicated. Here in the vehicle function, you can also here set the transparency for the roof and so on. Then the rear seats, everything is covered here again. So that is very well done. Also this nice brushed aluminum interior, electric door opening for the rear, and everything has nice clicking sound. So the interior build quality here is really amazing, gotta say that. And one more here, shiny small logos. Anthony, Colin, Bruce, Chapman. These are the 4 names then overall together from the Lotus founder. That's why they have like this, you know, this special logos with his, you know, first letters always in. And look at that. I mean, the color combination, again, you can discuss that. Green is the original Lotus color. Then, you know, they start with the yellow stripes here. Put down this one. Oh, look at that. Even here, metal knurling on top of these cup holders. So, and I really have to say, when we talk about the Chinese influence of Lotus, the Chinese manufacturers, they have really mastered that the interior build quality is top notch. So that is something Lotus definitely profits from. The middle part here can be also slid down as a ski edge. Really heavy part here overall. And we also have electric control here for the rear seats. Here you can put them more straight, you can put them back again. Here, and once again, these metal knurled knobs for that. This is like a 2/3, 1/3 split of the seats where you can change the inclination just a little bit. Headroom here, there's no problem with 189/6'2". To the side here, it gets a little bit closer, but still okay. Beautiful covered here from microfiber, and also when you touch it underneath and so on. There's also enough legroom left for tall Ls, no problem. One thing with the electric vehicles, even if it's an SUV, it's not the highest SUV, but you can see here, they have built some kind of foot garages here, but you still see the inclination here. But I think it's still okay. You know, maybe in the Emeya, the sedan brother of this one, it's more of a problem if you compare it then here to the SUV version. It is really spacious. It's a long vehicle, 5'10" or 201 inches. So you have more than enough room here, left, right, front, back. So comfortable and spacious experience. And in the middle part, you also have a separate unit here, separate screen. So yeah, you can also change the transparency of the roof there, for example, and also high resolution. Let's check out the trunk or the boots. Here we go. And of course, we'll take the measurements. This one fits in vertically underneath. There is this more classic, fixed, luxurious cover. We can take also out, and then you can see, well, it's maybe not the highest one, but still spacious. Here, this is good meter or 40 inches in width. It's a long vehicle, so we have here 120 in meters or 47 inches, and the height here is about 28 inches or 72 centimeters. You can lift this one up, but there's just, yeah, not too much space underneath actually. And then you can also, well, I have to go around because it's so long I can hardly reach that actually. And then there's a 2/3, 1/3 split, or you can also move down the ski hatch only, so that would also work. And then we are at a full length of, let's see about that, here, yeah, it's like easily 2 meters or 79 inches. Now we want to drive the thing, and we're joined by Brian. He's back once again, so good to see him. And actually the funny thing is, you basically grew up and you lived your whole life just, you know, a couple of miles away from here. This is like your backyard, you know, essentially. And you've also never been in an SUV that is this fast, is that correct?
I haven't done 3.3 seconds in an SUV, so I guess you have to ask the question, why do you need to drive 3.3 seconds? 0 to 100 in an SUV?
Because you can.
But it's Thomas driving, so it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. We're on a really nice test track that they have here at Lotus. If you haven't been here, they do driver workshops as well as car testing too. So you can actually come and check this out for yourself if you have a mind and a little bit of budget. But Thomas may not be there to drive you in this car at this speed. For that, you need us. Let's find out how it works.
I would say, let's try out. Just launch that thing off that long straight here. Let's go.
That's ridiculous. Okay, that feels wrong on every single level.
200 kilometers an hour. Oh.
That is crazy. It's shocking how different that feels to doing it in a standard sports car.
Oh.
3.3 in an SUV feels a lot more risky than 2.9 in anything else. That's fun.
So that was 0 to 200 kilometers an hour, 0 to 125 miles an hour, and was like, that's it. So, I mean, there's like, we're driving all electric, you know. Yes, it is a plug-in hybrid, but as I said, the electric thing is still the major thing here. We do have less weight from the battery because it's smaller. It's also a different battery than they use in the all-electric one. Yet at the same time, we also have then again additional weight at the front axle with the engine, which is maybe not the best for the weight distribution, let's take it that way. But I mean, it still feels like driving an electric vehicle. You wouldn't guess there's...
Okay, so I have to be honest. Here's the thing for me. It's great and it's fun that this thing goes that fast on acceleration.
Look at that.
You don't need it. What I want to know about is handling, specifically because this is the reason for buying this car. You want a Lotus, and here we have an excellent track. I have to say, but it feels nice. Does it feel solid?
Yeah, I mean, you see that the road is still a little bit wet. It's not too wet, but just a little bit. Oh, it's like really crisp braking. So you can set the braking to standard or sport. And when you have set it to sport, then it's really like very crisp response. And we talked about with the engineer about this, the steering. I'm not sure if you guys see that on camera, but I'm in the sport mode here. But still, like, I have to steer a lot. And sometimes you might think, oh, that's a bad thing. Here, I would say it's a good thing. It's also intended because they want to have the steering moving alongside with the wheels, you know, to get this more typical manual Lotus sports car feeling. What often happens in, you know, in the newer Chinese vehicles, that the steering is totally vague and is all set on comfort because they want to have this feeling of, I mean, you're driving in the city and you don't care at all about sportiness and you're steering through thin air. But here, for example, when I'm going like left and right, so the wheels should be doing the same movement than the steering wheel, you know? And so yeah, I have to steer a lot, but by that, it feels more natural and more like it's supposed to be a Lotus. Also what like you maybe grew up knowing what a Lotus is.
Well, the particularly weird thing is that they go to great trouble. It's always difficult separating marketing information from actual fact. But they make
Not
a big
bad.
point of explaining to you that they want the driver performance experience to also be matched with the passenger comfort. And you say, yeah, I heard that a million times before. But what's fascinating, now we're on the track and doing some speed, is that the braking doesn't feel as disruptive as you would expect in an SUV of this weight.
Yeah.
It doesn't. The corners don't feel as hard and abrupt. It is oddly quite comfortable. And you don't, what's weird is, you don't really pick up on that comfort at slower speed. Are you finding this too driving?
Yeah, I mean, it really could be different when you like really push it on the track, and that's also what we can do right now. You know, let's be even a little bit quicker. You know, so we have some experience.
I should have brought a cup of tea. We're in England.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
could see if I spill this. Imagine I'm holding then a cup of tea on the phone with. The Queen's gone. Oh, I don't want to speak to the other chap.
Yeah.
Somebody else. I don't know. Somebody else.
So
I can. My tea is not spilling.
I'm not sure if you also experience it as a passenger, but I like when I exit the corners here, it's feeling like very neutral, you know.
Yeah.
It's not like pulling
Yeah.
in the front, it's not breaking out in the rear. It's like really settled, you know. When that phone there in the front flies out of the inductive charging pad when I accelerate. That's showing you the G-force. Of course, we can't deny the weight at some point.
No.
It's a large SUV. It has the battery. It has the motor. When you're really pushing it into the tight corners, that's just physics. You know, you still feel it. You know, but that's rather when you push it here on the racetrack. It's not what you would feel on the open road. But the acceleration is just, I mean,
it's lovely.
It goes like this. And in any situation, you know, that is really insane. So, wow. So the power output here is massive, just massive. We can also try something out here, by the way. There is also here driving mode. I mean, you can tour here, by the way. So when I'm driving in tour and I do like slalom, we're really shaken up.
Yeah.
You know? But when I put it to sport and then do the same slalom,
Much better.
yeah, especially for the passenger, we're really like stiff and upright. So and you can change the driving modes here easily, as I've shown you in India part here, like this. And we can also go to the hybrid driving mode. That would also be possible. But at this point, it doesn't make much sense for the engine to be activated as well, because it's more, again, for this range boost you might.
You know what else?
That
I
was
really,
the spontaneous braking, just to test it out.
You know what else I really like?
Crazy.
Which is also coming as a surprise, is that to be honest, when you sit in this car and it's not moving, I don't think the seats are anything to write home about. But when you start driving this car and pushing it hard, they hold you surprisingly well,
that's good,
whilst
that's good.
weirdly giving you comfort. I feel like I'm sitting
Yeah.
not in a racing way at all, in a comfortable way, but I'm still held by the chair.
This is like, yeah.
It's quite unusual, right?
Yeah. They give you, I mean, they're comfortable from the ergonomics, and they hold you tight. Good point. Yeah.
More than you expect, but not in the way you expect.
because they don't look that comfortable.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I would probably suggest that when you have like these fabric seats, they also offer that they would even offer a little bit more comfort, and also you don't slide on them so much, you know. So if you want the sportier setup, then we should probably go for the fabric seats then here as well.
Guys, I know we're on a racetrack, but somebody has to say something about this color choice of interior. Here's what I want to know. Is there anybody watching this video that likes and thinks Lotus did a good selection with this green? Because to me, it feels like we're sitting inside of some sort of mint sweet. It's very peculiar, but there's a taste for everyone. I really want to know if somebody's looking at this saying, yes, that's the interior for me.
What I found actually really amazing is, I mean, I'm not driving slow here, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the speeds here, I set it to kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
I'm really driving fast all through the corners, and we're just like chit-chatting here, you know? So like talking about interior color choices and everything. This chicane here is like 150 kilometers an hour. I could even go faster, you know? I don't want to exaggerate it here with the wet track still,
But you make a really
it's
important
relaxed,
point,
right?
because I'm excited to get this on proper roads. The thing is, if this gives you a false understanding of the amount of safety you have when you're in real world conditions,
I mean,
because you're right, it's a racetrack.
we can try this chicane again. Let me try that a little bit quicker even. Let's see here, entry speed now, like entry speed 100 kilometers an hour. A little bit slower than in the chicane, a little bit on the brakes here. Out there, doesn't like swim away. Then accelerate. Oh, You can.
And there's the
There's the
There
phone.
goes the phone.
There goes the phone.
Oh, phone is
Oh,
gone
wow.
forever.
Yeah, and that about like sporty driving and the phone in an inductive charging pad.
Oh,
So that's down there.
you have it.
So remember, guys, when you drive sporty, no phone in inductive charging pad. Very important to have that. Oh, that was the wing actually moving backwards. I think like it moves up when you're driving fast and it moves back in again when you're driving slow. So yeah, wow. I mean, the performance is definitely there, and chassis-wise, this also works very well. It's like the reaction time also, you know, like it's there, you know, like you do this and it's there.
So here's what I want to know, and you can tell me if you disagree on this. I believe, for my taste, Porsche made the finest steering wheel ever, and you always tell what you think of a steering wheel when you're on a racetrack. How did Lotus do with this?
I really like the setup they did here with this, hey, I need to steer a little bit more. And the thing is that usually I'm more fan if the steering is more progressive. But as I started here on the racetrack, I understand the decision more because here on the racetrack, it feels more natural. And the problem is with electric vehicles that have so much like steering support, all the ADAS systems, you have the electric motors, which doesn't give you like a sense of, you know, raw speed in the way of there's a growling engine and so on, and you lose the natural connection to the car. But then when you have to do a little bit more with the steering, actually, it takes you a little bit back in time again, you know, to get this sense of sensation, sense of speed, sense of steering. Here you see like on the curbs and so on, and that gives you back this kind of feeling you may want when you drive a Lotus. You know, these are the small things they can do. Actually,
But that's the steering. But how about the wheel itself?
I think that's actually pretty cool. You have good grip here, left and right. The flat bottom as well, that you have a little bit more space for your knees. And this acceleration out of the corner is insane. I mean, I can be like full throttle at the exit of the corner. That's crazy. But I mean, like here, you have a good grip, and also here, like changing the driving modes is like fun. You can also change the regeneration, by the way. Here you can put regenerative braking on full, for example. So then I don't have to brake the car, you know, myself. Let's see if it also goes to 0. If it's like full one pedal driving. In this case, not probably. No, it's still rolling. But this like, and then you can go back here to off. Then you can just do the regenerative braking with the brake pedal like this. And yeah, one more acceleration.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, Brian loves that stuff.
But before we go, Thomas has said quite some mean things about roads here in the UK. I'd like to point this out. Is this a road we're on?
This is
a road?
This is
Are there any potholes on this road? This is a road in the UK.
No, there's not a road in the UK.
Therefore, you can go home and say,
well-maintained
I've driven
racetrack.
on a road in the UK with no potholes and no defects. You cannot deny this now.
That's true. This is the first road I see here in the UK which has no potholes.
Yeah.
Actually.
It's puff. But how do they achieve this at Lotus, but not everywhere else?
Lotus must have more money than the British government to fix the roads here.
Yeah, I think so.
Seems
right.
to be like.
One more time. You ready, guys?
One more time.
Here we go.
Let's go.
Whoa! Yes! That's the stuff. Come on.
Woo!
Yeah, okay.
Crazy.
That's
Crazy,
they're gonna sell
crazy.
cars with that. Come on. They are. That puts a big grin on your face.
And one more time with the chicane here.
That's
On the curbs.
really handles nicely.
Yeah, handling is really awesome. Look at that, and full throttle out of the corner. And
Yeah.
130 again. Crazy. For such a heavy and large SUV,
Yeah.
that is amazing.
So there you go. I think the styling is going to split some people in terms of how they feel about it, but you have to drive the car to really have a feel. And the package all together, you know, the engineers saying to us, okay, it's a Lotus experience. You're like, is it though? Really, is it? And when you get everything together, and it's hard to see how you would experience that off a racetrack, you say, you know what? There is something of Lotus here. There is something Lotus here. But will it do it on a standard road?
Let's see about that.
Welcome to the road test portion of the review. Now,
Road trip time.
For this bit-
Leah, Brian and Thomas.
we decided it would be most exciting if we played the roles. Thomas, the father, Leah, the mother, and I, the misbehaving child.
Most
Ordinarily,
obviously.
I would be in the front of the car, but both Thomas and Leah felt the rear was the right place to put me.
Exactly.
Feel on one hand as if I take some slight offense to this. However, on the other hand, it is nice to get a better sense of how this car feels on traditional British roads from the back. Will there be any comfort? And will Thomas find that it's just as much fun to drive when you're driving it at the legal speed limit?
What an awesome intro. And Leah can be actually also double thankful of Brian's role today, because Leah said on the racetrack, and so Brian, stepped in and saved her actually. So thanks to Brian, Leah is still well and could also sustain the lunch we just had. Yeah, but even more looking forward on the road. And actually I found it really cool to also have rear passengers, because we hardly have that. Most of the time we can only travel with two. But
Mom,
it's even more.
Mom, may I have some sweets, Mom?
No, in 10
Are we
minutes,
there?
In 10 minutes.
Are we there?
Are we there yet?
Oh man.
I mean, because like when you're in the rear, you even, feel how the car is moving even more. And sometimes I have the problem when I'm sitting in the rear, when I'm being shuttled, then I'm then getting sick. So let's see if we can make Brian get sick. No, we would just drive very normally. And I'm really gonna say, my thoughts are with you guys, everyone here from the area. I've never seen any more destroyed roads, than north of London. It's like, there's a pothole everywhere. What is this, And I always saw that some German roads are bad, but I will never complain about German roads ever again.
But let us be honest here. What Thomas is really saying is that he admires British drivers for their ability and skill to remain on this road and not in the massive holes that are such a prominent feature. Thomas, we talked a bit about the seats when you're on the racetrack. What is your experience of the comfort while driving in normal conditions?
I think they're really nice, So I like the ergonomics.
Yeah.
Most obviously,
Good, yeah.
I would like if they use vegan leatherette or if they have the fabric seats. But I got to say that the ergonomics are really good, and also seating position and the steering wheel position. So it does not only work as a sporty car on the racetrack, it really works as an everyday cruiser. I'm now also in the tour mode. Here I can switch through the driving modes here, tour, range, sport, and so on. And for the tour, the suspension is a little bit softer. This two-chamber air suspension, that's also comfortable, for passengers and passengers in the rear and so on. And I understand also, these are the partly filled, some not filled potholes again. And that's also what the Lotus engineers told us actually, that they say we cannot build like a stiff sports car only in this segment. We have to pay attention to sometimes also bad roads, that people are still comfortable. And here with the steering it's also interesting. So they have not made it sports car stiff, that you have this racing feeling. At the same time, because you have a little bit more travel with the steering, it's not that zone area. So every degree counts. But you have to do a little bit more travel, and that kind of is this balance between, hey, it should feel a little bit more, Lotus neutral-ish, more, like it used to be, but at the same time, it should be comfortable. By the way, not that you mix here, I put the kilometers an hour for the instruments, and we're here at the miles per hour. So not that anyone...
Thomas is not driving too fast.
Not that everyone says like, oh, I've discovered a secret. Thomas was driving too fast, So I'm always like,
You're driving too fast.
yeah, you know me, like you're driving too fast. No, we don't have like this digital voice assistant here on top of that. They draw that everything back, So this is here, driver counts. So how are you feeling as a passenger?
Really good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, yeah. No complaints from Leah. What about the kids in the rear?
Yeah, the kids in the rear have been happier previously, I may tell you. So the seats, which are very well designed for the behavior of the car in the front. In the rear, I feel that Lotus could have done a little bit more with checking out some competition. Rear seats are always a bit of a challenge in terms of deciding, do you want good comfort for 2 or practical use for 3? Here you can see that they've gone for practical use for 3. How that manifests itself as the rear passenger is that whilst this car would be very comfortable, the seats are firm and fine for driving around town. When you get outside into the countryside, which for a lot of us is our daily reality, well, there's no lateral support at all.
One more acceleration for Leah. Let's go.
And there goes the phone again.
And there goes the phone again.
Yeah, maybe it's not the best phone holder there.
Yeah, we haven't learned anything. Yeah, so definitely this car is too quick for the phone.
Yeah.
So yeah, better put your phone like in the storage here in the lower
And it's
armrest
really
or something.
silent in here. Yeah.
It's extremely
Noticed it, yeah.
silent. Yeah. I mean, Leah is the one who's like noticing that best always, like how silent a vehicle is. And we really gotta say, I mean, with Brian on the racetrack, we were at 200 kilometers an hour.
It was silent.
Sorry, we did that, yeah. And it was super silent. It was super silent, even at these high speeds. Oh, and this is like, what are they doing? There's like a police car behind that one there. Interesting. I'm not driving too fast, right? I mean, did have quick acceleration, but I'm not driving too fast, right? For the police.
I think he recognizes that we're filming the review and he wants viewer numbers.
Yeah. Did he horn on us as well?
Yeah, no, it was the DIY kitchen.
Oh, yeah, but because they didn't let the police car through. I mean, but probably they had some more serious business, you know, to attend to, like, you know. But this is something that we also discovered in Korea, by the way, when we were visiting South Korea, that sometimes the emergency vehicles are not getting like free pass, you know. Then, yeah, I think everyone who has the horn on should always get the free pass, right? Yeah. Back to the car, motorway, 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour. Ease.
Yeah.
Very
Really good.
relaxed,
Yeah.
very relaxed. Super silent, like,
Oh.
What the hell? What's going
Oh,
on there?
the right lane.
Oh, I think there's something
on the
going
left
on.
lane, yeah.
Yeah, something maybe like an accident, they discovered something. Oh, that's also
I'm
quick
wondering
blockage.
if this could be the taste police that have heard of this green car.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe.
Yes.
No, but yeah, it seems to be like, you know, like a, I don't know, tire blow off or something like that. Yeah, but wow, well done by the police, definitely. So, very relaxed on the motorway. I mean, I somehow feel, I mean, on the racetrack it did perform well from the acceleration and stuff, but it's still a heavy vehicle. I feel that here on the motorway it's even more at home. The air suspension, you know, is floating nicely without being too soft. It's actually exactly right, and I think it's super silent here, extremely silent and comfortable. So this being a long way cruiser, I can very well understand that, both at the full electric version and also here with the range extender. And yeah, maybe it's also relaxing for the kids. I mean,
Well, truthfully though, I think you have to make compromises anywhere with car design. And the decision they made with this one is that the experience belongs to the front seat passengers. There are more comfortable cars if you wish to be driven. If you're in this price group and you're buying a car to be driven around in, I can tell you this is not the car. There's too much movement. I'm not feeling like a VIP person. And I would say I'm just jealous of Leah. Sorry, Mum. Yeah, unfortunately, Mum is taller than I am, so she has the rights to the front seat. That's sad for me. There's not much I can do with this, even with my very long torso.
well, it looks stunning on the exterior. The interior has a high build quality. I'm looking forward again to the animal-free versions. But the build quality itself, also inside of the doors and so on, is really the very high level. And I love all these metal knurlings and the knobs and so on the interior. It drives very well, extreme good performance. At some point you cannot deny the weight, and it's both the weight, of course, when you have full EV, but also here in this plug-in hybrid concept, the weight is always high with large SUV plus electric. That's just the thing. On the racetrack you feel it even more. But then again, when you're driving the road, you feel it a little bit less. And yes, this is a car that is less British than an original Lotus. That's completely clear. And it's also built in China. At the same time, they profit from the Chinese investment because Lotus would otherwise probably be a dead company. And they can also profit from, for example, the high interior build quality, all the technology, all the engineering and so on. And then again, you know, the Chinese investors of Geely, they profit from this test track here, where Lotus has been testing their cars for decades, and where they still also here in these surroundings here still build their small sports cars. And so the knowledge goes then also back and forth. What do you think about this concept, about this plug-in hybrid? as the all-electric Eletre. I mean, it makes sense with the large battery, you already have a high range. But then the question is your charging infrastructure good? For most cases, it will be the all-electric Eletre. This would be then the use case if you say, I can maybe charge well at home, but often I go on very long trips and I know where I'm going, there's no charging infrastructure. And then I have the battery as a, you know, maybe as a safety net or something like that. So I would be looking forward to your comments if you would rather go here for this very unusual approach of plug-in hybrid with a battery size of an all-electric vehicle already, or if you then would directly go for the Lotus Eletre, the all-electric version. And I mean, driving-wise, the performance is definitely there. Most of time, you will drive it all-electric and will be similar to the Eletre. But then again, with this additional, hey, I can maybe also still fuel it up with this 52 liter of fuel tank. What do you think about this concept? Tell me in the comments, and also if you enjoyed our special Lotus Inside episode for today. And now it's time to check some other competitors.